Hello everybody, welcome to number 27, I'm Jack. Last November I went to Oklahoma in the USA to buy my dream project car. And it is just about to arrive. Once it gets here, we're going to take a good look through the car, all the bits that came with it, but I also have some crucial decisions to make. Firstly, about the colour of the car, and secondly, the spec of the engine. Also, concerning the wheels as well. But I think I can hear a truck coming. It's quite misleading seeing the car here like this because it looks as if it doesn't need that much to finish it. It really does though. Have a look at these shots I took earlier of all the parts inside it. It starts to give you an idea. What we're going to do is I'm going to unpack it all. A, to give you a sense of the scale of this project, and B, because I then need to reorganize it all in my garage. After that, we need to discuss some really important questions about how this is going to evolve. So the spec, what I'm going to do when I rebuild this car. Everything you see here has to go back into the car. Now bear in mind that a lot of it is boxed or in little envelopes or bags, so there is a multitude of parts. And if you look at the engine bay, we only put the engine in, drive shafts, you know, downpipes, carb, all that stuff was sort of very loosely attached to the car so that it could just be for the transport. So all that has to come out, all those bits have to come out, things of the interior as well, like the door cards that we put in. So it's actually a much bigger pile than you even see here. If you watched the video where I went to get the Pantera in Oklahoma, you all remember that it is running on some Ford style, I think they're Mustang wheels, which don't look too bad, but ultimately I wanted to go for the original ones. So I got some of the wider Campagnolos, which are 10-inch and 8-inch, exactly the same design, just that they were an option on, or I think they came as standard on the GTS, on the sportier car. I've sourced a set from the US and they've arrived just before the Pantera did. Now they were supposed to be pretty good, but actually there were quite a few imperfections on them, so I'd like to see if it's possible to get them refurbed. Because they are magnesium rims, it is much trickier than it would be with a normal rim. So I'm heading to Smart Rims in Kidlington. We're going to talk to Adam and hopefully leave them with him for him to work his magic and make them pristine again. Right, Adam, these are my Pantera wheels. I bought them separately to the car. They are magnesium and I am a little bit worried because I know they can be a bit finicky. What are your thoughts?
If it is a heavy, thick coating on there, we may have to use a chemical stripping process, but we will try and avoid that.
So you're trying to avoid that because it tends to do a bit more damage to a magnesium wheel?
It can open up the pores of the magnesium and
right.
make it a bit pitted and a bit holy, and then you can end up with a little bit of a rough texture.
Okay, fine. And price-wise?
I'm estimating between £400 and £600. I'll try and get you closer to the 400 mark.
Okay.
Hopefully it comes off easy, but I'll do my best for you.
Thanks, Raddy. The next big decision that I have to make is to do with the spec of the engine. It had been completely rebuilt by Jim, we know that much, but we have no idea to what spec. You can see that it's got some trick parts on it. So the Edelbrock heads, It's got some nice manifolds, which I purchased while I was in America. It's got a different carb. So just with those bits, it should be putting out more power than standard. Standard, these were about 350 horsepower. Just with those bits, I'd imagine at least another 30 horsepower, maybe a little bit more. Now what I need to know is what specification of cam and what pistons are in the engine. It might have standard pistons and it might have a cam that's perfect, or it might have a cam that's a little bit peaky. What I want from this engine is effortless torque. So in order to find out, we need to get it out of the car, then disassemble the top end, see what's there and see if I have to change it. And here I encounter my first problem because my engine crane isn't long enough. Enter my friends James and Ramon to the rescue. This is where things could have got really, really bad because the engine was at its highest point when one of the joints on Ramon's crane appeared to be giving way. At this point, all we could do was just get on with it as quickly as possible. Yeah, that whole process is fucking sketchy. I've been able to work out what kind of setup Jim has gone for, at least with the camshaft, because it is stamped on the back. I sent those details through to my friends in the US, and they said that this is quite a radical cam for a Ford V8. So, total lift, exhaust and intake is 0.65 of an inch. Essentially, this would give me an engine which would start pulling at around 3,000 RPM, rev to 6.5. That's not what I'm looking for this, and it does tally up because this is a solid cam with solid lifters. It doesn't have hydraulic lifters, so that is made for higher revs. That means that I'm going to have to change the camshaft. While I'm doing that, I might as well go for hydraulic lifters because they're just easier to set up and easier to maintain longer term. Before, though, I can order the right camshaft, I have to see what type of pistons are in there, because if they're the original ones, which are either flat top or slightly recessed, I think, that's one thing. If they're high compression ones, which are domed, then that will affect what I'm going to go for. So I've taken out the spark plugs, which we only put there at the beginning before it was shipped anyway, to try and keep it all sealed up. And then we'll go in and see what's there. These are the original cast aluminium pistons. That simplifies things a bit in some ways, but in others, we may consider raising the compression a tiny bit with a thinner head gasket. All the information has gone to Dan Jones in the US, who's a whiz with these engines, so I'm waiting to hear back what kind of spec we're going to go for. In the meantime, let's just catch up and see what's happening with the wheels. I am so excited because Adam from Smart Rooms has just been in touch and the wheels are finished and ready to collect. Not just that, but this is a double whammy of goodness because they are now fitted with a period set of Pirelli P7s. I spoke to Dougal at Longstone. They had these tyres remanufactured from Pirelli for these older supercars. The car was designed around them and I wanted the very best. Whilst we're on our way, have a quick listen to what Dougal has to say about the history of the P7 and how it works with the Pantera as well.
Okay, this Longstone tyre is trying to explain Detomaso Pantera tyres. Not that simple. The original tyres, which at the time were a Goodyear Arriva, are no longer currently produced. It's a 205/60/15 isn't a tyre that many classic cars fitted. And then on the rear, they fitted a 255/60/15, which is an extremely rare tyre. The only cars I know that fitted that were this short period of Pantera, the rear of the SV version of the Lamborghini Miura, and about 2 years in the Aston Martin Vantage, which makes it really tricky. So the only setup we can give you, which is exactly the correct size tyres, is the Goodyear Radial TA. Although these are not a bad tyre, they're not built for a carcass, a chassis structure, or a sports car like the Detomaso. So we've got something that is a little bit more down that route. It's really built for earlier cars, and it's really a racing tyre. So we've got the Avon CR6ZZs, and they're not quite the right size in front. So instead of 205/60/15, it's 215/60/15. Not ideal, but that will fit on between 6.5 and 7.5 inch rim. And then for the rear, we've got either 245/60 or 275/55, which will fit, the 245 will fit on your 8 inch rim nicely, and the 275 will squeeze onto your 10 inch rim. But it's not really ideal. And then, another good option, but not really perfect, is we do actually have the tyre that was made for the back of the Lamborghini Miura SV and the Aston Martin Vantage, the 255/60/15 Pirelli Cintrato CM12. But the front that's closest again is 215/60, not 205/60, and it's a CM36. Ace tyre, perfect performance, built for 930 Porsches and Carreras. So a fantastic tyre, but it's not the same tread pads. All right. However, this setup here does fit the tyres for the later car. You can fit that rear on either an 8 or a 10 inch rim, so there's no problem there, and the front will easily go on. So, our recommendation for that period, the 72 to 78, that's the Pantera L, the GTS, and the Group 3. We would say fit those P7s because it is a tyre ideally suited to the car, but just a mildly later model. The push-button Panteras, the 3L, and the GTS, chassis number 1001 to 4268. Brilliantly, literally do a fantastic range of classic car tyres. They're really good quality, and they do still make the original 185/70/15 or 215/70/15 Michelin XWX that fits on that car. From 79 to 90, the GT4, GT5, and GT5S, what they call the wide body cars, with this one here, the 345/35/15 Pirelli P7, which fits on the 13 inch rim that the wide body Pantera is fitted. So that's that one there. And then the front, they had to go even bigger, didn't they? So they now have a 10 inch rim on the front of the wide body cars, and that's fitted a 285/40/15 Pirelli P7, which again we have here. So we can fit the original equipment on those wide body cars, road tyres. If you want to go racing, mix them with the TB15, which is the fully treaded one, or we've got the TB5F, which is a semi-slick tyre. They're road legal sprint tyres. But I think your bulk of the cars, you're going to want to go with those XWXs on the early ones, and I would say the P7s on the mid-range ones. If you need any more information about Pantera tyres, contact longstone.com or 01302 71123, and we'll do our best to help you.
As per Dougal's recommendation, I went with some Pirelli P7s for my newly refurbished Campagnolo alloy wheels, And don't they look absolutely amazing? I am so pleased with these. I can't wait to see them on the car. Contact details for both Smart Rims, who reconditioned the wheels, and Longstone, who provided the tyres, are in the video description. Time now to make some big decisions. This car was previously owned by Jim, a well-known figure in the Pantera community in the USA. He had already restored quite a few of these cars, and he was part way through doing this one when unfortunately he passed away. And part of the ethos of this build was to finish off what Jim had started. But although this car was freshly painted a few years ago and has never been used, there are actually some problems with that paint job. So there's paint reactions in quite a few sections of the car. There's lines and marks where presumably it's had a skim of filler and it's reacted or sunk. Now originally I was hoping to be able to just repaint a couple of panels and I was going to keep it black. But having examined it more closely now, almost every panel needs some attention, plus this black paint has a blue fleck in it and would be very, very difficult to match. So I've decided if I have to go to the expense of repainting the whole car, then I'm going to pick a colour that I really, really like. There wasn't much documentation with this car, but I was able to obtain the original build report with the spec sheet for the car. I wanted to see if perhaps the original colour that it was one of the ones that I really liked. Unfortunately, originally, this was painted silver, which, although it's okay, certainly doesn't inspire me. So I've now narrowed it down to 3 original colours. There is what Detomaso calls medium blue, which is like a baby blue, which I do really like. And I think was also the same colour that the Haggerty Pantera was. Then there is medium green, which to me isn't a medium at all. It's a sort of aquatic kind of turquoisey with a little bit of green, which is quite an interesting colour. And then the killer to me is lime, which I think looks amazing. It comes down to a choice between the blue and the lime. That turquoise is a colour that I do like, but I'm just not 100% convinced by it. If we take another look at the blue, and this picture, by the way, is from the Hemmings website. Do check them out because they have some really interesting classic car stories on there. I'll put a link in the video description. But then there's the lime. And you will notice here when you compare it to the Mura colour, because it looks very, very similar in some pictures, but when you put them side by side, the Pantera one is a little bit more toned down and it's got a bit more olive in it. I think I prefer the Mura colour, so another option is to go for that. Let me know what you think. In the meantime, I've got to start stripping off all the trim on the car because it's going to be going for paint very soon, and probably just about a week's time. So it's now ready for paint. It will be going to my friends at KC Auto Colours in Kidlington in around a week. In the meantime, let me know which colour I should pick. Is it going to be the blue? Is it going to be perhaps that interesting turquoise? Or is it going to be the original lime or the Mura lime? I have a feeling that I know which one you'll prefer, but it will be really interesting to see in the comments. Now, it's been 6 months since I first went to see this car in Oklahoma. So it's been much longer than I wanted for this first follow-up video to come out. If you want to see updates in real time, do consider becoming a channel member, because in that section I release updates, pictures, progress of the car and of my other projects. Lastly, if you haven't already seen it, do have a look at the video of my trip to Oklahoma, where I went to look for this car and saw it for the very first time.